Around, we want to talk about how to design like a pro with your smartphone. I want to look at the basics, principles, and guidelines of how to design like a pro with your smartphone. All right. Normally, you normally use a practical approach, show you how to use one app or the other to achieve one thing or the other. But today we are digging a little bit deeper and we are trying to handle principles, guidelines, and the basics. We want to try and see how we can tinker with the reason why we do certain things when we are now designing, or the reason why we use this app or the other app in this particular way. And I want to say it's more important that you know the principles than just to know the know-how. The know-how is cool, but the principles are better. With the principles, you can use any application, any platform, and achieve great results. But if you just have a know-how without the principles, and if you are stuck one day outside the application, you may not be able to achieve anything. So today, that's what we are going to be handling. How to design like a pro, principles, basics, and the guidelines. All right. First and foremost, design principles. Visual design principles inform us how design elements go together to create well-rounded and thoughtful visuals. Okay, graphics that take the advantage of principles of good design. And these are the designs that can drive engagement and increase usability. All right. So when we are studying design principles, our basic aim is to control the process of design deliberately, and we are hoping to be able to design elements that will create thoughtful designs. And the aim is that when we take advantage of these good design principles, the end is that we're going to drive engagement. So that is the basic thing we want us to look at there. So the first design element, the design principle we're going to look at is typography. Typography simply from the word type, typewriter, is how we use fonts effectively. Most of the time when we talk about design elements are usually type, fonts, letters, images, colors, shapes. So fonts are a major aspect of design. Now, the aim of design is to communicate, not just to impress or to bamboozle. The aim of design is to communicate. So your font, your typography is very, very important. Okay, so when we talk about typography, you need to know how to utilize each font. Each font you use has features, has functions, has scenarios that they are best used. For example, if you are using a handwriting font, you should know when to use it. If you're using an artistic font, you should know when to use it. Most of the time, keep your fonts simple and use fonts that people can read and get the message that you're trying to communicate. Okay, now whenever you're also designing, try and stick to a limited number of fonts. Don't use one particular design you're using up to 6-7 different fonts. It's going to confuse your audience. Remember, what we are studying is the principles behind the design, not just the principles behind why professionals do what they do, but these principles are results of research where the human system has been studied and researched on to know exactly why do human beings see how do they perceive and see and comprehend design. How does design communicate best to humans? And that is how these design principles came up. Stick to a limited number of fonts, even if you want to use many fonts. Most times it's best you use different types of the font in one single typeface. We are talking about when you select a font, you have bold, you have medium, you have thick bold, you have italic, you have. So instead of using different fonts, why not use one typeface and use different fonts? That way it keeps your design simple, and the simpler a design, the more it communicates. All right. We've talked about the present age of minimalism, and so where the designs are not so complex, it just confuses. So choose your typeface wisely. Choose your typeface color wisely. What color are you using for your font? Choose it wisely. We are going to talk much more on color later. Now, pick your secondary fonts wisely. Now you finish the first font. You're okay with your first font, but you still feel that another font should come in. Make sure you pick that font wisely. Of course, you cannot be using if you need to put in an artistic font, maybe a handwriting kind of font, maybe a serif or sans serif, different forms of fonts. When you are picking a second one, what is the purpose behind it? Choose it wisely. Let your secondary fonts not come and blow things up. Now pay attention to alignment. Now if you look at this particular design I'm using for this presentation, you see the alignment I'm using. I kind of cascaded the things. You can see it here. I kind of cascaded all this in a way that it forms a form of a ladder-like thing down. And I could have simply kept it aligned. In fact, I actually tried aligning it at the to left align it. I actually tried to left align it down here, and if you notice, some of them have different lengths. So when I left aligned it, it didn't really look nice because some were sticking out, and so I now decided I'm going to align. So you have to consider alignment. Align it in a way that your design is beautiful and it's very easy for someone to read. It doesn't distract. So let's move on. Make use of negative and white space. Now, when we talk about white space, we are not talking about white as in color, but it's a term called white space, or sometimes called negative space, which is empty spaces in between your design elements. Empty spaces in between your design elements, as we'll still talk much more on this right in the same course. So you can see that right here we have spaces. There's a space here, there's a space here. In between the text there are spaces. There's this massive space here, this big space here, space here. Even in between the fonts there are some spaces. Here there's a space. Now the amount of white space you have is going to create some form of contrast on the major things you want to say. The white space would push out the major information you want to pass across, or the major element you want to pass across. But if you mumble everything together, no spaces in between, you are just going to confuse your audience. You're just going to confuse your audience. So get your design inspiration. We'll talk more about this. Your size matters. Now this takes me to the next part of call, which is hierarchy. Now we'll talk about hierarchy. Hierarchy refers to the importance of elements within a design, and the most important element should appear to be the most important. So you don't, if it's the most important, it should appear to be so. And the ones that are not that important should also be brought down. Their priority in order of appearance, in order of visibility and prominence should reduce. Now, if you look at this design we have here, you can see the 4 love languages of design is the most prominent thing there, and the image also prominent. It communicates. Now the rest of the next line that is also quite important there is this one, and then you now have the least important at these ones here. So what is the priority of importance? What is the major message you want to pass across? That should be the one that is given the most prominent positioning, color, and everything. You place it in a way that once someone looks at your design, that's the first thing he sees.